Provolone John said, I'm just waiting for this John to kick off. Yes, we are here on a Friday. So glad to have you in here, Provolone John, waiting for us to kick off. Gene is back. We're back following a tough loss last night, but we have a lot to get into on this Friday. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast alongside Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens, Brianna producing, and all of you in the chat on this beautiful, yet again, beautiful weather day here in Philadelphia.
And somehow we're stuck inside talking about Kai Jones and the Philadelphia 76ers.
And yes, we're going to get into some front court help. They finally have some front court help. It's not Andre Drummond.
It's an interesting use of the word help there, Devon. We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there and figure out what it is exactly as Kai Jones signed a 10-day contract. And presumably he'll be able to get things started with the Sixers on Saturday against his former team, the Charlotte Hornets. The Sixers desperately need a win. Will he even be in the mix for it all? We'll get
Kai
into
Jones
that.
Revenge game?
Yeah, maybe. Hey, have a career high against. How many points does he have? 100 something?
179, I think it is, yeah.
I don't know if he'll get that much, but as long as he helps lead them to the win, they need a W. They're only 6 games over 500. We're also going to do a mailbag question rundown overall throughout this show also, and have a few questions that you all asked us. We want to answer those for you on this Friday, and we should probably get started there as we get things going here with Kai Jones. Kai Jones, 10-day contract, again, a first-round pick for the Charlotte Hornets, and he played a few seasons there with the basketball team. Bad basketball team, talented player where they take him in the first round as they try to look at some young players, develop them, and with his athletic ability, pretty raw as a player where they felt like maybe, again, with the coaching staff, they could develop him into a nice role player. Who knows, maybe even more. They've drafted a lot of bigs there, from Nick Richards to Mark Williams from Duke as well, and Kai Jones was another piece. But then things just kind of went the other way. And at the end of the season and into the offseason,
that's one way of putting it.
They went the other way, where they had to make a decision where the guy was on videos dancing on, I don't know, TikTok or Instagram, wherever it was social media.
Those
he was
damn
dancing.
kids in their TikTok.
Exactly. Well, that's a whole nother story. But he got cut. He got waived. And like, wow, this talented young player playing with a bad team where you get minutes to see if you can play in this league and do some things. Well, it wasn't enough to keep him on the roster. Since then, he has not been picked up by a professional team. He did play a couple of games with his Bohemian national team as they try to figure out some FIBA things there for qualifying for them. But other than that, he has not played a lick of professional basketball for the NBA, for another team overseas, for the G League, any of that. And here we are right now, Derek, where we have the 76ers picking him up on a 10-day contract. How much can he actually help this basketball team over the span of 10 days? What does this mean?
Yeah, so Kai Jones is a 23-year-old, just turned 23, has played not a whole lot of basketball. 2 years with Charlotte, not big minutes in either ones. Obviously played more in the second season than the first, but was not a fixture of the rotation. It is a bit of a weird signing because on the one hand, you look at a 10-day contract and say, all right, they're signing him to help now, right? They think they can get some minutes out of him. Maybe he's no Bamba. He's not Mo Bamba. So you'll have less Bamba.
Maybe no Bamba should have been our thumbnail text for
That would be the theory behind it. But when I look at him as a player, forget all of the off-court stuff, forget all the maturity, all that stuff. When I just look at him as a player, I'm not sure he's ready to help out on the floor anyway. But I also don't think Daryl Morey is in a spot where he is looking for a long-term project on this roster either, nor would you think so, given the fact that he is signing a 10-day contract. So it makes sense in the fact that they really could use another center option because Mo Bamba has not been good for most of the season. But on the other hand, he doesn't fit either a help now player or a long-term project player. There's part of me that wonders, all right, maybe they just gave him a 10-day contract because that's 10 days where you get a chance to, be up close, evaluate him, see whether or not he's a chance to, because there's a lot of talk out there of his maturity, of other stuff. You get a chance to talk to him, see him up front, see if maybe there is a chance he could fill a role now, or see if maybe he's somebody who you're interested in long term. It's just like an extended interview process. Maybe that's what this is about. I'm real interested to see whether or not he sees a floor for any meaningful minutes here. I think what I said before the show, over under of 20 minutes during his 10-day contract. I'm not sure I'd take the over, which, And maybe part of this is there's roster limits where you can only go 2 weeks without having 14 players on the roster. Maybe they just needed to fill a roster spot and occupy a roster spot by league rules. So why not grab an athletic big man? Maybe it's just as simple as that. But I guess it's a very long-winded way of me saying my expectations are pretty low.
Yeah, and I would say this. We can get into the actual basketball tools and talent. It's all about, as Derek said, getting to know this guy and being up close and personal with this guy. Derek actually pointed me to an interview, pointed us, I should say, an interview he did after being waived in Charlotte. It was with a high school teammate of his. And look, some time has passed since then. That was months ago. I'm sure he's gotten talkings to by representation, family, friends, whatever, trying to get his head on straight after how he left Charlotte. But we're talking about a guy who sat in this interview and said he wants to be a combination of Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman. He also thinks that he can be Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson in one person.
Well, and then he thinks he can be a billionaire and build rocket ships. So he wants to be Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, and Elon Musk, which all
he thinks he can be
degrees,
a great rapper, a great singer. And it's like, look, I'm never going to hold someone down from, you have many interests, you want to do a lot of things. That's great. Athletes have a lot of free time on their hands. So I'm not trying to stifle him and his creativity and who he wants to be. But when you're a guy who has scored 179 total career points and has generally shown to be, let's be charitable, we'll say erratic when you're on the floor, let alone off of it. The mental side of the game has been a struggle for him at times, just staying dialed in and engaged and not taking stupid fouls and so on and so forth. And so I don't see anything that suggests that he has learned what he needed to learn from being cut. He also said as part of that interview that he was asked to go to therapy by the Hornets and initially rejected it, started going, and then told the Hornets essentially, this isn't working for me. And the Hornets said, okay, well, this is according to Kai Jones anyway. The Hornets then said, well, then you're not welcome at training camp because they believed it was important for him to go and try to better himself and recenter himself after an erratic offseason. And so I hope that he has used this time to recalibrate and look within himself and see, here's the thing where I'm coming from. If you can't be good at and focus on your actual job, the thing that we know, maybe he's not good in terms of the NBA scale, but he's good on a worldwide scale, right? He's been one of the 450. He was a first-round pick, et cetera, et cetera. So he's got the talent to be there. Focus on that, and then the rest of the stuff maybe will come at some point. Maybe you'll be able to drop a shitty mixtape down the road or get a picture with Elon Musk. But to sit here when you are out of the league entirely and being I'm going to be a multi-billionaire building spaceships and a combination of Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson. Needless to say, I'm a little bit dubious of all that.
Yeah. And look, to your point, you don't want to begrudge a guy for having big dreams, but it's one thing to have goals and to work towards those goals. It's another thing to truthfully believe that you currently are. And I'm not sure I'm confident he is on the right side of that spectrum there.
He has a really good opportunity here with this basketball team because of the Mo Bamba things that you guys talk about where they badly need front court help. They had a player in Kenny Lofton Jr. who was here for a while, could never get a sniff on the Sixers roster after destroying the G League for the Delaware Bluecoats. Then you get the 10-day contract from Darius Baisley. Never sniffed the floor either, as well as he was playing with the Delaware Bluecoats. Both have since signed some non-guaranteed deals with the Utah Jazz so they can get a peek because they are in a different situation than the 76ers are. And that's where I kind of look at this one with Kai Jones, the talented first-round player that he was coming out of school, taken by Charlotte. But again, just going back to all of the things that both Kyle and Derek have talked about, you can't ignore the off-the-court things, but when it comes to the on-the-floor stuff, he had a golden opportunity with a bad basketball team to really establish himself as an NBA player in this league. So where is his focus? Where is his mindset of how, if he wants to be that good, he showed us a little bit already there in Charlotte. Now, maybe this demotion of not being an NBA player, being out the entire season, and not linking up with an NBA team until March, maybe that has done something for him, because in that interview that Kyle was talking about, he mentioned while speaking to the interviewer that he was in conversation with a lot of teams. They were trying to do some feedback on him. But guess what? That was a long time ago in NBA year, in an NBA season. And we are again in March, where there are under 20 games for every NBA team, and they are trying to focus on the playoffs and the seeding and all those things, and no one has signed him. So if he is serious, which is why he signed this contract, then he, again, is in a good opportunity, a good situation, because they badly need front court help. They're playing KJ Martin center minutes when Mo Bamba and Paul Reed are not getting anything done. Mo Bamba is playing terrible basketball right now. He has his moments, but he's playing terrible basketball. Nick Batum is your center. They need front court help, and that's why it was sad to say it at that time, where we at least wanted to see what Darius Bazley could help just during that 10-day stretch a little bit. We didn't see much from him either. So I'm very curious, just like these guys are curious, into seeing what he actually has. How much has he worked out during the time off? How sharp is he? He had to go through a workout for the Sixers to sign him to this 10-day. Mm-hmm. What did they see, and will we get a chance to see it? So, again, he has a pretty good opportunity here just to be a guy, to be athletic, to run the floor, to use his smarts out there on the floor and not be in space. As Gene said, he's probably already in the spaceship right now. Well, we're going to find out. Maybe
it's on the space.
We're going to find out whether he is on the floor or not. We're going to find out how good he is if he plays any minutes, and how meaningful will they be. And then again, we're going to find out if he doesn't get minutes, because that will tell the story also. Jeff Doughton got on the floor as a point guard. They needed that point guard help.
Yeah.
He got some run. But Nick Nurse had a relationship, and he already knew who he was.
I was going to say, that's the important part there, right? He had a successful run in Toronto, and is also, he's on the other side of the spectrum, right? Like, I think Doughton is, I'd say, relatively polished for a guy that you're signing to a two-way deal. And he's like a jack of all trades, master of none type of player.
Yep.
And that's been helpful at times for a team that is just in need of anybody that can play. To your points about Kai, Devon, I do think that if you can somehow harness him, very good athlete, right? And I think potentially, keyword potentially, which that's like the operative word with Kai Jones, I think he could be a lob threat in a way that neither of their two current bigs are. Like, that's not Paul Reed's game. It is certainly not Mo Bamba. And so you put him in pick and rolls and throw it up there, he can go get it. That is helpful, because downhill gravity like that, whether it's for Tyrese Maxey, Buddy Hield, who we've seen run a decent amount of pick and rolls with Paul Reed, or even, God forbid they run offense through him, maybe Tobias Harris, like try to run him in some actions with just simplify it. It's like, hey, that guy is big and athletic. You just have to throw it in a decent radius. He can go up and get it and maybe finish.
We've spent 5 years
Derek,
watching.
Listen, I'm grasping at straws here.
He can't get an entry pass here. You want him to throw a lob?
Straws. What do you want from me?
You just go to campaign, man.
What do you want from me?
Let him throw that lob. Him or Kyle Lowry. Let them throw the lobs.
So I'm just trying to look at that. That would be the hope. To your initial point you made, Derek, I'm not sure he even gets on the floor. Mm-hmm. I do think Nurse, for all our complaints about Mo Bamba, has shown at least a decent amount of trust in him. Like, he's started quite a bit, and some of that is because it seems that Paul is better in that bench activity, energy role. How Kai factors into the picture, I'm not exactly sure yet, but look, got to give him his opportunity. We've seen guys come in here that one or all of us did not love coming in, that have had moments in the sun while they're here. So maybe Kai comes in, has one or two good performances, gets another 10-day. We'll see where this goes. But yeah, I mean, if there was a lot of belief in him around the league, he wouldn't have survived on the open market this long. A rebuilding team would have said, yeah, let's bring him in and see if GOAT life is what he believes it is.
No, look, he has enough athletic talent and enough, he gives good enough effort that I am intrigued by what he might become in 4 years. if he matures enough and, gets his, he talked in that interview that we mentioned about being a 1 through 5, and he didn't talk about defending 1 through 5. Like, no, he thinks he can play 1 through 5 on both sides of the floor. If he gets a firmer grasp on reality, I'm interested to see what he can become because he has a lot of physical tools and he does play hard. And the Sixers, I'm desperate to watch any tall human being that's not Mo Bamba. So, I get it from that perspective. But my expectations are sort of low on a 10-day. Sort of low. They're almost at the floor.
Yeah, but like you said, if they're the Sixers...
transition again.
Oh, you smoked it again. You son of a bitch.
That's why I stopped right there.
But if you are... like me, you probably have a lot of spring to-do projects. If one of them is flooring, Empire Today has got you covered.
Empire.
With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today keeps shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection, and their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What Empire Today leaves out of their selection is as important as what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find perfect styles. And Empire Today has a virtual floor designer, which is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy, just snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. Shopping for floors at a big box store can be frustrating. You might talk to someone today who was working in plumbing yesterday. Flooring is all Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. They also service their own warranties. So with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details.
Somebody's honking at us outside.
They really love that ad read.
Listen.
Big Empire.
We love
fans.
Empire around here. You know who else we love? Our good friends at Bagels Co, who offers huge Brooklyn-style bagels made right here in Philadelphia. I eat them several days a week, and Bagels Co offers an average of around 15 to 20 of bagels that they rotate seasonally. When you're eating them all the time, guys, you don't want to eat the same thing every day, and they make sure that they also throw in some holiday-themed stuff like, hey, St. Patrick's Day this Sunday. By the way, random tangent, middle of an ad read. Why was the St. Patrick's Day parade last Sunday, the 10th, when St. Patrick's Day is on a weekend and you could have the parade on St. Patrick's Day? Anyway, that's really grinds my gears. But anyway, if you're a cream cheese guy like I am, Bagels Co offers 30 different flavors of cream cheese that rotate throughout the year. They do themed sports team cream cheeses for all the local teams, Sixers, Eagles, Flyers, Phillies, maybe the Union. I never know. I got to check with our friends there, see if they do a Union one. Don't know if they're big soccer guys and gals over there. But just as important as that variety is the affordability, because Bagels Co has kept their prices down so you can be an everyday customer, even as we're all battling inflation everywhere else. They don't want you to just be a person who can only come in for a weekend splurge. They offer premium coffee to go with those delicious bagels and cream cheese at a superior price to most national brands and chains. We love that around here. So for the best Brooklyn-style bagels made right here in Philadelphia, head to www.thebagelsandco.com/store-locator to find the closest Bagels & Co. near you.
All right.
That St. Patrick's Day parade thing really was like, I don't know, why? What was the point of that? Do it on St. Patrick's Day. I feel like doing the Thanksgiving Day parade on Thanksgiving Eve. Like what?
That is odd.
I just don't understand that. Sorry, that has really bothered me for the last.
Were they
It's just
worried
weird
about
watching Kyle get wound up about something trivial in the middle of an ad read.
It just like floated into my head, and I was like, it is tied into what I'm talking about here, and I'm sure our friends,
Maybe they were worried about the
bagel
weather.
slingers, won't mind.
Maybe they were worried about the weather.
The Bagel Slingers. I think that should be their new name.
The bagel slingers. All
I
right.
don't know if that's going to catch on, but
All right. You guys ready to get started with a little bit of the mailbag questions?
are we all done on Kai Jones? Everybody tapped out on our Kai Jones
just,
knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know how to
Kai Jones
recap it other
knowledge.
than like intriguing long-term prospect who at this point has been unreliable in terms of his approach to the game, and a 10-day seems like a weird spot for that, but they desperately need anyone with size and athleticism who isn't Mo Bamba, so here we are.
The other part is he didn't sign a deal to play in the G League. even with the Bluecoats or any other team. Was he in the showcase? Didn't see him in the showcase, any of that. So I'm very curious of what his representation was
he did
finding out.
He played for the Bahamas at
well, that one I mentioned.
what was it? The
FIBAs.
Yeah.
He played
is it
2
America
games.
Cup or something like that? I don't remember what the
And he only
tournament
played
is.
2 games.
Yeah, so it's very little regular activity.
Yeah, so why not put him in the G League and get some work done there? Was there any interest overseas? But based on his comments in that interview, that is probably, in my opinion, like beneath him.
Is that real?
Because of what you were saying about who he was. And
I don't think he's been humbled far enough to go to the G League.
The Eagles traded for Kenny Pickett?
Did they really?
Yeah.
A backup quarterback. You know.
I guess.
Yeah.
Man, those guys are doing so many freaking emergency
I was going to
pods.
say, poor Zach and Bo are just like, they're going to have someone with like a ventriloquist dummy out here at some point doing the show.
We on the other hand are talking Vince out of doing a Kai Jones emergency pod. Meanwhile, they're doing them all day. All day.
We had some business to take care of yesterday. Derek worked very hard in the studio.
Behind the scenes stuff.
Behind the scenes. So we didn't want to overtax him yesterday.
Kenny Pickett, whatever. Backup quarterback. Well, Russ came in and took his job, and sure he's not happy about that.
That's what Schefter is the one who reported it. So he said that once they signed Wilson, that Pickett wanted to move on. So he moved on to a team that has an entrenched starting quarterback. Okay.
Maybe he feels like the quarterback coach is better.
Because we do have mailbag questions about the team that we cover.
Yeah, sorry, that was just distracting.
What do you think of the offseason so
Do we
far
want to
for
hit the
Eagles,
Twitter
man?
ones, or we have a few in the Discord that I could go through those for sure?
What
those
Discord, Kyle? How would people submit a mailbag question
guys,
through the Discord?
We have a diehard program here at PHLY. You go to allphly.com. You can sign up there. You get all kinds of different benefits. You get a free T-shirt when you sign up. You get access to insider articles and content, so written stuff from Derek, myself, ZB, Bo, Charlie, John. There's a whole lot of stuff going around there. Access to the Discord, which I'm going to read questions from, is great. We had Jay the Jungle just joined recently. Bunch of you that I see every day are in that Discord, and Derek and I have broken some Sixers news in there prior to going to Twitter, so we have tried to use it as a way to provide you guys with news, to talk with people outside of the show, outside of Twitter, that it becomes harder and harder to, Jay says he opted for a hat rather than a shirt. So that is an option now that we have hats in the store.
We've also dropped some background information on things that we have covered over our it feels like 2 long careers covering this team. So some background on some controversial stuff. So
Yeah. So if you join the Die Hard program, you can get priority for the mailbag question. So I'm going to take
I just want to give Bree her props because we started randomly talking about Discord and she brought that Die Hard graphic up in a second.
True professional.
It wasn't even on the agenda.
True professional. So first question we have today comes from Supra98X in the Discord. Here's one.
Supra or Supra?
Like the
car.
Like the car,
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's one. Knowing the Sixers may very well match up with Boston in round 1, how do you feel about our chances with a healthy team?
I specifically told you not to pick this one because it's too depressing for a Friday afternoon show.
Too damn bad, Derek.
They match up poorly. I actually feel, because I know a lot of people right now are real down on the team and their playoff chances. I actually feel like this team, when Joel Embiid comes back, is built around Embiid better than they have been through most of his career. Now, granted, they spent a lot of time with, Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz and Tobias Harris eating up salary cap space and minutes and shots. So they've never been built around Joel Embiid well. But with the addition of Buddy and with the growth of Tyrese Maxey and some role players like Batum who fit Embiid well, I actually think they're pretty well positioned to play off of his strengths. So I think they are equipped better than normal to play around Joel in the playoffs and give him a chance to succeed in the playoffs if he comes back healthy, but almost uniquely ill-equipped to go up against the Boston Celtics, which ties into this question because I don't know how they match up with that team and all the size they have in the perimeter and the way they can, switch hunt and punish switches. The Sixers have a lot to punish. That's going to be a real tough matchup.
Which is why it was
That's
always
the
brought
tagline
up by
for the video
trying
yearbook.
to stay away from them in the first round. I mean, not even in the first round, just trying to stay away from them until you get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Hope
Because
somebody else can pick them off.
Exactly. And the fact that the history is what the history is over the last 7 playoff appearances where they have had to face Boston. And the greatest chance that they had was last season in Game 6, going up 3-2 and trying to close it out at home. It didn't happen. So, yes, they took one of the games earlier in the regular season. Boston came back and snatched one away from them. And then we know what happened since then, especially with Embiid not being out there on the floor. You do see where they can get at Boston, but can they consistently play at that level against Boston to, again, knock them off in the series? That's where the matchups come into question.
Yeah.
So here's what I would say. I don't feel good about a round 1 matchup. One, Joel Embiid will not be 100% or whatever. We can pick a number that he would be at. He's not going to be at like full game, mid-season, or really end-of-season conditioning that you need to be at. And so even if I were to give you the optimist case on how they match up player by player, position by position, the fact of the matter is if they don't have close to or at 100% Joel Embiid, they're not beating Boston. Like, Boston is a good enough team that they will they will exploit. And they've exploited Joel defensively in the past with a worse group of offensive personnel, right? Spreading the floor, playing stretch bigs, forcing him to close out, having him switch so he has to defend Tatum for long stretches of time. So they can do that better than they ever have now with Porzingis. You could basically have a stretch big between him and Horford on the floor at all times. You got Derek White, who has been even better now. You got Drew Holiday, who has upgraded the team. There are no real weaknesses beyond the top or inside the top 6 or 7 guys. Yeah. They have a really strong top 6 or 7. So no, I don't think they match up well. If they could get Joe healthy, I do think he, at least in flashes, has shown that he can beat up this matchup worse than before. Porzingis is going to have a hard time guarding him. I know they're going to send doubles and they're going to send help, but they have a decent amount of shooting around him between Batum, Hield, Maxey, in theory, Tobias Harris, which I have to note it's in theory. Where I really think the series would be lost is defensively. I think, to Derek's point, there are too many pressure points that you can hit. And even if I were to sit here and say, all right, I'm an optimist on how Maxey would perform based on that recent game where, he got into Jaylen Brown, he got into Jason Tatum, had a good night on defense there. There are too many other guys. And there are too many other guys who have issues that are not guarding your man. They're guarding in team defense and being aware and keeping your head on a swivel. There are too many, let's say, lackadaisical defenders on the team against Boston.
Melton and Covington would be helpful.
Yes.
Healthy
they have
in the
a
series.
really unique combination of being bad at the point of attack and also being ball watchers off the ball, which is not great.
Very bad combination, especially with the way the league has shifted to perimeter play over the last, 20 years or so. All right. Pull another one from the Discord, I suppose. Although we got a lot of... Oh, here we go. How is the cap... This is from M. Goldenpine in our Discord. How is the cap plan supposed to work even if they land a third star? The Sixers' best 3 role players, who he says are Hield, Melton, and Batum, are all free agents. One might be best as a 6th man. One has a bad back, and another one is 35.
Yeah, they're going to have issues with depth. So, here's what I'll say. The cap space plan, I feel like I've said this 455,000 times, isn't just about cap space. It's also about trades. And it's not just about the big trades like maybe you would see at the draft with the 5 draft picks they can trade, but also the trades of contracts other teams are going to want to get off of. When you have cap space, you can absorb that salary back. And I think with the new CBA and the double apron rules, there's going to be a lot of teams looking to move salary that maybe doesn't fit as well as previously did. But maybe their star has gone down a little bit. They just don't want that contract on their books. It's not just going to be bad contracts that are being dumped. It's significant contracts for teams that want to get flexibility under that second apron, under that hard cap, so they can do the series of moves that we won't get into now because that would be a long discussion. But there's a series of moves that you can't do if you're over the second apron. Teams are going to be avoiding that, so they're going to be shedding salary, even good salary. So the cap space plan isn't just signing a player with cap space, but it does bring up a good point. If you have to renounce players to actually sign a free agent, then you've renounced those players. You don't have a real way to replace them. Or if you want to bring them back, a lot of the players they have right now just aren't reliable and people you want to buy into long term, like DeAnthony Melton. Even if he's a player you would like to have around long term, you don't know if the back's going to cooperate. And a lot of the other role players are aging. So I think depth is going to be a concern regardless of which way they go. I think it's a very valid point, but I don't know if there's a way out of it at this point either.
And in Melton's case too, weirdly enough, like it'd almost be more comforting if he had suffered, like a knee injury or something that was like, okay, he's out and he has to get surgery or he's got to be out for a certain amount of time. But once he's back, we would be sitting here and be like, okay, I think we're fairly confident he'll get close to where he's been historically. With a back, it's like, dude, I don't know if/when he's going to get right. The whole thing with him coming into the season that he said to us on media day and throughout training camp was one of the great things of the offseason was that I was healthy. I was able to get work in after not being healthy for most of last season. He battled a back issue the whole previous season. Granted, he still played at a pretty high level for a role player most of the season, but end of the day, he had a back issue and now he's got a second one. And he's headed into free agency. And it's like, how much can you really bet on this guy? One, he's got to be available to play. Like, set aside, does he fit with whoever they bring in? And like, I think he's an easily scalable player. If he's on a good contract, he should be able to establish a role on basically any team. But how do you structure a contract for a guy like that? That's really difficult.
If there's good news, it might be that he might be willing to take a short-term deal just as a prove-it kind of thing because of how much time he's missed. But you still have that back still has to cooperate at some point.
Big blow for him because as far as name value and just having a rotation player on the off season, he's probably going to get a good look. Depending on how far they would have gone had he been healthy. They got to the second round last year. He played a big part of that. He was a starter this season. That would have probably netted him some pretty good money. And now with the back issue, he's going to be hoping to get maybe even that short term. And he's not old yet, but he's got a bad back.
Yeah.
And that's...
Bad backs don't tend to recover all that well.
No.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because I like him as a player. He's also just a great dude, like great locker room guy. Him and Tyrese are super tight. Like, you don't hear anybody say anything bad about DeAnthony. So this has been a bummer for him individually. But to the point of the question, that's one of the many complications of this summer, depending on what they do. It's like, okay, maybe you get your third star. Melton might be an example of you might be able to steal him and say, here, another prove-it deal or a 1-year prove-it deal. He comes back and he's, has a good year and then he moves on after that. That's probably best case scenario for the Sixers, but not a lot of those. Like Batum, the question is, a lot of people think he's going to retire after this year. There have been some rumors about that, although he has not made comments to that effect basically all year.
Yeah.
So.
But I guess the good news is if Melton is able to come back, he has had a lot of time to chill. He didn't get to choose it, but he has had a lot of time to chill here, so he should be fresh.
Yeah, when you guys want to choose chill, you know who you go with. Our good friends with Coors Light. Look at Devon with the shush over.
I appreciate you for that.
With Coors Light, you can choose chill by reaching for an ice-cold beer. And with Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice-cold beer because the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans when they hit that perfect temperature. Sadly, ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen it seems, but I'm sure there's some ladies out there. It looks like the Sixers season might come to an end sooner than all of us would hope for. But the good news with that would be freeze us up early May, late April. Enjoy the warm weather, some of the warm weather like we're getting right now. You can saunter on up to a bar, head to the beach, or just buy some Coors Light to put in your fridge and know that you're getting a cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged beer with a smooth finish, mountain cold refreshment here in Philadelphia or wherever you're watching from. So even though the state of Colorado is working on a ban to keep me out of there for life, hopefully there are no further training camps there, I can still choose chill with a crisp and refreshing beer. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
That's my cue. That is definitely my
That's all right. See, I was quiet. I was quiet, though.
We also want to make sure that we tell you about Rocket Money because we all want to make sure that you get the most out of your money and that you're not wasting money on unnecessary subscriptions. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place, and if you see something you don't want, you can cancel it with a tap, and you never have to get on the phone with customer service. I hate the phone. They'll even try to get your refund for the last couple months of wasting money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. I just had to get on the phone with a service provider yesterday. Freaking annoying. Rocket Money has over 5 million users, and it's helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
We did have one silly question in the Discord from Pixies fan 007. If you tie buttered bread to the back of a cat and drop it, what lands? The cat feet first or the buttered bread butter side down? I got nothing for that one. My money's on the cat, frankly.
Yeah.
Cat's
Their
reflexes are crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, nuts. I'm going with the cat.
Yeah. Also, because I would like the cat to land on its feet. I think that's like the humane answer. So I'll go with that. I don't need PETA knocking at my door like, you picked the buttered bread, you MFer.
There's a little weight to it. With the butter on
okay,
it.
so we can move on to, we got some Twitter mailbag questions, I believe. We had a question from Val, the Blessed Gardener, who asked, are we sure Nick Nurse is really good? Some of his lineups are head scratching. Not to mention timeout usage. This is reoccurring. I don't know that I have had problems with the timeout usage. I think maybe this is just watching games with Devon. Normally when one of us is like, need a timeout comes fairly quickly. So we're in lockstep with the coach on that one. Challenges are maybe an area that I think could be cleaned up a little bit. I think Nurse has been a little reactionary, and when he's especially frustrated, he doesn't wait for whoever the video iPad guy is on the sideline. He's like, "Fuck it, I'm calling the challenge," and then it ends up like, that's kind of borderline. Otherwise, I put him in a similar category as we've put the team these last, month and a half, 6 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is at this point since Joel went down. I don't know how much you can evaluate from what Nurse is doing with the roster that they have. Like, they have 3 of their most playable rotation guys, Maxey obviously, but Lowry and Payne are like 6 foot tall guards, right? You can't really construct a good 2-way rotation when 3 of your playable guys are susceptible to being picked on defense, even if we're giving Tyrese credit for his step forward there. So that's a problem. The bigs behind Joel are a problem. Paul Reed is overextended, and our thoughts on Mo Bamba are clear, and they don't really have wings. Like, Tobias has not been good. Nick Batum has struggled, and I think he's like a pure 4, small ball 5 at this point, even though they have him chasing around guards on defense, which that's a story for another day. I haven't liked that a whole lot.
But that just goes to what his personnel is and what his options are and who he trusts, quite frankly, out there to defend those perimeter players like that. So I haven't had all that much of a problem with Nick Nurse. The only questions that I have had, Tobias Harris, extended minutes when it's time to pull the plug on it. But then again, the argument can go back to Nurse saying that I need to get one of my better players who's still available and healthy going. So he's right. But then there's also, we're looking at the game and they're still in it. And we see that he is actively, not sabotaging because we've already used that enough, but he's not doing any.
This isn't a headline. You can reuse stuff.
he's not helping them. So when he's not helping them, we're looking at it in game saying, get that guy out of the game. And that means putting in one of your younger players who is nowhere near the talent level of Tobias Harris, but they're at least going to give the energy. So if we're talking Tobias Harris in a stretch of 5 to 7 minutes going 0 for 3 with 2 turnovers, Would you prefer to see that from another guy who's given more effort, it seems, when he's out there on the floor? So that has been really my only thing with Nick Nurse. And the other part before anyone says, because I know I've said this, when Doc Rivers had Joel Embiid out, he did get the guys up to play, and they played and they won.
Yeah.
But he also seemingly had
James
better
Harden.
talent there with him to lean on when Joel Embiid was out. So that's the difference there for me. There are some I know who have had their issues with Nurse. Nurse lost this game. Nurse didn't do this. Nurse didn't do that. I'm not there yet. Too many guys have been injured all season.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we do with coaches is something we do with like role players as well. When they're away, you have a perception of them, and then they get here and you overanalyze them to death, and you always want to reevaluate the narrative around. Look, I think Nick Nurse has been around for long enough. He won a title. He had his teams overachieve for a couple of years in a row. I think we know who Nick Nurse is as a coach, but now we get to watch him every day. We get to see every little thing that frustrates us. He's certainly working with an imperfect roster, so there's a lot of things that's going to be frustrating, even if he was pulling all the right buttons. And by the way, when you're desperate, you're not going to pull all the right buttons because you're just going to try shit to see if it works. So I think he gets overanalyzed like all coaches do when they first come to town. Do I think he's a good coach? Yes. Do I think he's a perfect coach? No. Do I think he's in a tough spot? Abso-frickin-lutely.
All right. I think we'll probably get maybe one, perhaps two more, depending on how long these responses go to the mailbag questions. All right. This one from Muffet McGraw. 2 connected questions. I think I want to focus on one of these. Who is the best fitting role player Daryl has acquired during his tenure? And are you worried about the front office's ability to ID elite role guys like what we've seen in Denver, Boston, and New York?
I'll start with, we mentioned DeAnthony Melton. Number one, acquiring him at the at the draft the way that he did, came out of nowhere. At least for me, I didn't hear his name mentioned anywhere of a player that could be traded. And then for him to come in and be the 6th man, 7th man, and really do some really good things off the bench, not only as a lead guard sometimes, but also as that off guard. And then the defense of how much he can help. It didn't really, for my answer, it doesn't really help when you get to the game 6 and he's missing 3 3-pointers when he's wide open in a game 6 where the game is in the guts and you would like him to knock it down. The arena is ready to blow the top of the building off.
I prefer it when they make the 3-pointers in a clinching game. Yes, I agree.
Yes, but in terms of what he has done for what Daryl Morey gave up for when he got here and how he's been so versatile as that guard, that you can have him in, again, as a lead guard, as a 2-guard, as a small guard lineup, 3-guard lineup. You can have him out there with other players and still be really effective. I'd say DeAnthony Melton for what he's made. Now, the back part doesn't help. That's not his fault, though.
No. The one I came to, I think, was probably the obvious one with Seth Curry, because he's the definition of a role player who was elevated because of his, how well his skill set fit with Embiid. Is he the best player? No. Is he the best role player? No. But I think he is the one who fits the best, and because of that, his play was elevated. His status, his contributions to the team were elevated over where they were at other stops. So that was the one that I went with.
Yeah, I think both of those. They're probably the 2 most obvious candidates. To the second part of the question, this offseason is where we're going to see, what does Daryl got?
Yep.
Because not only does he have to pull off a fairly substantial move to, if it's not like a true 3rd star, at least like a 3rd very good player to put between Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. And let's be honest, the summer before last, with hindsight, was a whiff, right? Like PJ Tucker was clearly too far along to make the impact that he needed to. D-House did nothing of real note during his time here. Now, certainly was a great locker room presence that I appreciated quite a bit, but my personal entertainment in the locker room does not, unfortunately, impact winning basketball games. So we're going to see what Daryl's got up his sleeve. I do think, and Denver was brought up there. This might be a conversation for another day. I think the Aaron Gordon trade it might end up going down as one of the most underrated deals in NBA history for how that tied together everything that they had going in Denver. Like their identity really crystallized as soon as they got him, and they didn't give up a whole hell of a lot to get him. Certainly won the trade by quite a bit. And now that team is set up to win for,
a long time.
the next half decade, they're going to be at least in the mix as long as those guys are healthy. And the guys who are going to leave, I think they have a good chance to replace. I also think, and this is a credit to Mike Malone and how things are structured there, they've really tried to incorporate their guys that they draft early and often. And they took some short-term pain as a result of that early in the season. And now they might have some playable young guys and defensive wings, 3-and-D type players in the playoffs. So Denver's certainly an organization they could take some notes from.
It's also really easy to integrate role players when you have a passing savant like that too. It makes the job a little easier, but they have definitely hit a lot of doubles that they need along the way.
All right, everybody, you ready to get up on out of here and enjoy the rest of our Friday?
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Sixers play Charlotte on Saturday, so we'll be back for a post game. They're back
Kai Jones revenge season, baby.
Yes, sir. Goat talk. So that's going to happen tomorrow. We'll be here for the post game. Kyle will be at the arena. He'll check in from the arena as we get things going. Final game of the week, and then of course they're back on the floor on Monday to host the who is that they host? The Miami Heat. And who's right there in the mix with the Sixers in the standing. So we'll do that.
And by the way, this is not just a revenge game. This is like borderline must win. At home against the Hornets, considering what you have left. If you want to have any hope of keeping any kind of seeding, you've got to win this game.
Gotta get it.
Seth Curry, man. He says no.
Shouting out my people. First, I want to shout out our guy Puppa's over in the UK. It says he's drunk on a train. So it's Friday night in the UK, and Puppa's is on a train having consumed some adult beverages, still checking in. The rest of you should take some goddamn notes from our friend Puppa's.
Should we give him the
We
bell
will
for
judge him
drinking that
early.
early? Get a bell.
It's not
for
that
drinking
early.
Well,
it's Friday evening.
He's on the train. Drink.
Well, and he's also in the UK.
Very true.
That's what I'm saying.
No judgment here,
But he
Puppas.
gets the bell.
We love you, Puppa's.
Keep drinking that garbage.
We also love Eugene Ross, the hypothetical man,
What
Jay
up,
the
Gene?
Jungle, Rick Morse, Aaron, Fusion,
Aaron.
Spiral Out, Cannoli, Bucket Getter 215,
Get buckets. What
Money
up?
Mar, who by the way was sending some shade toward Derek in the
He's
chat.
not happy
said,
with Derek.
You're
Okay.
a coward for muting him in the chat. I'm just delivering the message. I just wanted to make sure that you got it. Got Ray Burrows. I think our guy Al was in here early. The 2-minute warning.
What up, Al?
James Meehan, Chris B, Randy Rubart, our regular friend who's
friend,
always in there. LJ, Kyle Wright. I don't know, man. Khalil Wilson,
What up,
Provolone
Lil?
John. I believe I saw. I'm sorry, gentlemen. Lego, my ego. Imy. I don't.
I don't know that we got
That's a new
It's a long
one for me.
It's a long
Larry
name.
Jackson, George. We got some others in here, guys. I've scrolled pretty far. Anpu Mines, John 17. Thank you, everyone, for checking in with us today. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button, Puppas will drink one more beer for each thumbs up.
Don't fall asleep on that train.
Puppas, please don't do that. I would be really concerned for your well-being, but I'll have a beer if you guys hit some thumbs ups. Might even be a Coors Light. We'll see you tomorrow night after the game.
We all silly like the mayor.